Games. As you can see, we're back at the table. Well, the table's down here. You can't actually see the table because of the angle of the camera this time. I'm trying out new camera stuff, which is just a thing. Anyhow, it's been a couple of weeks since we actually talked about what we're playing. The last video I did was a tour of our shelves, and I hope you enjoyed that. We really like the new shelves a lot, yeah. But it's October, and we have been playing games that are a little bit more spooky themed, although we do tend to play these kind of things year-round, I guess. But let's just say that we're concentrating on them in October. Let's see, we have not yet gotten into the new glooms that we've gotten, both the expansions and the new versions. And we have still played Silver some more since the last time I talked to y'all. Even though the werewolves are very inconspicuous, still kind of a werewolf thing going there, so we are still playing that. And we've gotten into our Horrified collection. We love Horrified. Anyhow, we have Horrified Universal Monsters and Horrified American Monsters. And you might be wondering what the difference is if you're not familiar with them. Well, first let me tell you a little bit about them. They're co-op games where you are fighting off monsters or cryptids or whatever, you're defeating them. In Universal Monsters, you have a village, and there are items scattered around the village, and you pick them up and you put them onto the monster board or do something like that or discard them. And these things defeat the monsters. It sounds really simple, but it's actually a little more complicated than that. The Universal Monsters has the classic horror movie monsters. If you're going to do this for Halloween night, I would recommend running some of those classic Universal movies. There are 6 or 7. In Universal, there are 7 monsters, but 2 of the monsters are played as one, meaning they have a joint monster mat that you take actions on, and their monster cards they have monster cards that deal with both of them. And that would be Frank and his bride, Frankenstein and Bride of. And it also has Dracula, Wolfman, Creature from the Black Lagoon, which is honestly my favorite Universal monster. And I also like playing against Creature in the game because actually Creature is kind of fairly easy to defeat. So it's not a bad idea to put Creature into the mix when you're playing one of the tougher ones. They also have Invisible Man and the Mummy. We have trouble with Invisible Man and the Mummy. And I don't know, maybe that's just us. Did I leave anybody off? No, I think that covers everyone. But we like the game a lot. It's a lot of fun, being very thematic. You bring villagers out onto the board periodically, and you have to protect them from the monsters, although occasionally we've just sacrificed them. Of course, that raises the terror level. There are 2 ways that you can lose. The terror level, if it maxes out, which I think is 10, you lose the game. And the terror level goes up every time a villager is killed or a hero is removed from the board temporarily, shall we say, defeated. There's no player elimination in this game. I mean, the villagers will get toasted occasionally. I mean, they'll just monster takes them out because there's no way that you can protect them. But if you can protect the villagers and get them to their location, you get a perk card. The perk cards have an assorted different values of, they're different things that you can do that are good things. There are advantages that you can apply at various points during the game. They're actually pretty valuable. And I will get to that in a minute when we compare the 2 games. But you also have monster cards, and you draw a monster card on every turn. Not every turn, but every player's turn. So you go through that monster deck pretty quickly. You know, you have your phase, your action phase, and then you have the monster phase in which the monster gets to do stuff to you. And so there are 30 cards in the monster deck, and when you go through that deck, game over. Wherever you are. If you've defeated the monsters, then you probably didn't make it to the end of the monster deck. I mean, we have come down to the last card before, you know, it's like, ta-da! But yeah, it's a fun game. The terror level ticks up, the monster deck ticks down, I guess you could say. And as I said, no player elimination. If you are defeated by a monster, when you draw a monster card and the monster must like roll dice and take actions against you or not, then you just go off the board and re-enter the board at the hospital at the beginning of your next turn, which is not a bad thing, because if you're going like with good old Dracula there, the graveyard and the church and all of that is right next to the hospital. So it's like if one of the monsters knocks you out, and one of the monsters you're working to defeat as Dracula, you can like come out of the hospital and like hop straight over and take another whack at him, you know, because he doesn't have to be in. He has to be in the same location as you for the final defeat, but not for all the little chipping away at him on his monster board. And it's a lot of fun. I like these games a lot. My husband and I both like these games a lot. They're pretty good co-op games. They are challenging. And one of the things I like about them is that you can scale the difficulty. First of all, some monsters are just easier to take out than other monsters. And secondly, how many monsters are you going to go against? I mean, if you're like going against 4 monsters, that's a pretty high difficulty level, no matter which monsters you pick. If you're going against 2 monsters, that's a fairly easy game, though some of those more difficult monsters can still just give you fits, and you might not win that easy game. So you can kind of scale the difficulty level depending upon how many people are playing, how experienced your player group is at co-op games and working together to figure out the best way of doing things. So, I mean, the higher player count can kind of work against you a little bit because you go through the monster deck more quickly. I have played with 5 people a couple of times, and it's like we lost, but it was so close. But the 2 players, you can sometimes get into a little bit of difficulty because you don't actually have enough heroes on the board to do all the things you need to do sometimes. But also the heroes that you're playing as different characters, and they have varying special action powers. So depending upon what combination of heroes that you have, who you're actually, the players at the board are actually playing as, what special actions they have, that can help a lot. We really like the Explorer and the Courier because they can just move all over the board like mad, and that's very, very helpful. Some of the other ones have other characteristics. We frequently will just choose to play as the Courier and the Explorer because with a 2-player game, we've done that thing where you just draw a random character, and there have been a couple of games where, I mean, there was no way that we could have won because our 2 characters' special actions, well, one of the characters does not actually even have a special action, but you get that one, and you get one character that doesn't have a special action that is particularly helpful for most of the game, or not at all against that particular villain or something, and it's just, you know, it's like you just can't win. So I would suggest that if you're playing with inexperienced players or a low player count, that you look at the hero's actions and select which ones that you wish to play as. But if you're playing with a big group, yeah, go ahead, do it random, because there's like a couple of extra characters more than the max number of player count is 5. And there's 7 heroes that you can play as. So chances are, if you did a random draw with a group of 4 or 5, that you would still get characters whose special actions are especially useful. But that's another way you can scale difficulty, is by selecting your heroes. And everything I just said about Universal Monsters is also true for American Monsters. This is a bit different because there are cryptids rather than what we would consider as classic horror monsters. These are things like the Jersey Devil and the Chupacabra, the Ozark Howler, Mothman, and of course Bigfoot, and there's some kind of a banshee. I know banshees are not actually from America, but apparently there is one here, or some people say there is. And characters like that. The way you play with the drawing of the cards, the turns, the rounds, and as with Universal Monsters, different creatures have different levels of difficulty, and you have a player mat for each monster. You have a player mat for each monster, and the difficulty level can be scaled depending upon how many cryptids you are trying to defeat, and depending upon which ones you choose. We have not actually gone through all of the cryptids in this box because, for reasons we can't really put our fingers on, we just don't enjoy this one nearly as much as we enjoy the Universal Monsters, which is kind of odd in a way because they made some changes to the game. They tweaked some stuff in this second version of the game, and I think it probably makes gameplay better, but we still don't enjoy it as much, and I don't know. I think we just need to play more against the cryptids. But the changes that they made are, you still have the same number of monsters. There are 6 here, and though there's 7 in Universal, 2 of Frank and his bride are played as 1. But so the monsters are the same, but the board is different. There are more spaces on the board that your characters can move to. Actually, technically, there are the same number of spaces on the board, but in Universal Monsters, because you have Gillman playing, 3 of the spaces are water spaces, which Gillman can go to, but the heroes cannot. So in terms of people moving around the board and guiding villagers, or in the case of American Monsters, they're called citizens, I believe, the number of spaces that you could actually go to in Universal Monsters is less. Because, Gillman has got like 3 extra spaces, but the rest of the people don't, which actually does seem to impact movement on the board, or perhaps it's the way they have the map laid out on the board, but I just find movement to be easier. Also, another change that they made with Universal Monsters is we have more villagers, that is citizens, who are investigators. Well, we're playing as investigators and we have citizens. Yeah, that's it. So we have more of them. There are 13 of them. And we've noticed in playing Universal Monsters, not Universal Monsters, we've noticed when playing American Monsters that because there are more citizens, naturally there are more monster cards in which you're bringing out citizens. And it seems like the distance that citizens have to move to get to their safe location, in which case you draw a perk card, which can give you an advantage. It just seems like that works easier and smoother. More people are coming out. That also means there's less monstery stuff happening on the monster cards. There's still monstery stuff happening. You cannot get away from the monstery stuff unless you have a perk card that says skip the monster phase. We love those cards. We kind of hate the monster phase. But that's what it's all about, is monsters. So you have fewer, a little bit less monstery stuff on the cards. You have more citizens coming out more often, and the movement on the board seems to work a little bit easier, so you can just get those citizens to their locations, pick up cards and use them to do more advantageous stuff. So it seems like that works a little bit better, but I don't know. I don't like the board as well. It's all in browns, which is very thematic, that whole kind of sepia colored retro sort of look. Now, Universal Monsters has a retro look too, but it's more like cartoon comic book retro with bright primary colors and stuff. And I like that. For one thing, it makes it a heck of a lot easier to find places on the board. In American Monsters, with that kind of tan on brown on black on brown kind of board, where it's like brown with a little bit of brown to go with your brown, and with more locations on the board, you find a lot of the times you're sitting around and you're going like, where is that? I've got to put a token on that spot and I don't know where that spot is. It's like, oh, wait, there it is. And then I'm going like, well, I've got to go from there to there, but then no, wait, the pathway goes this way. And you're just doing this thing where you're just constantly trying to orient yourself on the board and you're looking at it and everything looks the same because it's all pretty much the same color. So I kind of actually like the high contrast board better. I mean, I kind of get the whole sepia toned thing, that they're going for, sort of noir-ish. Now what, I don't know, noir cryptids, I guess that goes together. Anyhow, but so they tweak some things with the number of citizens, the locations on the board, and I do think that gameplay works a little bit better, but we still don't like it as much. We're going to keep playing it, and eventually it may just kind of click with us because we'll start, it's like it will finally click in our little brains, hey, maybe we can leverage these changes to win a bit more. But for now, we're probably going to play Universal Monsters still at a higher rate of play than the American Monsters. One more thing I wanted to add about the Universal Monsters versus American Monsters is if you are deeply into minis and painting minis, American Monsters, the minis are smaller and seem to be a little bit less detailed than American Monsters. The cryptids are conspicuously larger and chunkier, and I think they might make a better painting experience for people than a smaller mini. I don't know. I don't paint minis. As you can see, I just leave them as is. I have one game that has tempted me to paint the minis, but I still have not painted those minis. I just don't do that. I feel like painting minis is like a completely separate hobby from playing games with minis. Anyhow, the other game that we have played since the last time I talked to y'all is Disney's Haunted Mansion, which is a family weight game, definitely family weight game. This is easier playing, I think, than the co-op game. And this is something my husband and I have noted before, is that co-op games are hard. I mean, they're harder in some ways than a lot of games that are listed at the same rate that are competitive. But we enjoyed this a lot. The production values are terrific. The colors are beautiful. They put a whole lot into this. I mean, even the back of the board has like full art, and it's just gorgeous. And it's easy to learn. It's easy to play. I think that this would be a good game with kids. I mean, we have a lot of fun with Horrified, and I mean, I think you probably could play Horrified with kids, assuming that you could get the kids to cooperate, which can sometimes be an issue if the kids are siblings. But Haunted Mansion, it's family weight. It's easy to learn, would be easy to teach. Gameplay is easy, smooth. There's some competitive aspects where you can duel and try to get other people's cards from them. And by risking taking more haunt cards yourself. You don't want haunt cards. The more haunted you are, the worse it is at scoring time. But we didn't actually end up doing the dueling thing. We've played this once. This was our first playthrough, and we had a lot of fun with it, but we didn't like try to take each other's cards and do the dueling thing when we were in the same room with each other. Although now that I think about it, I think we were only in the same room with each other a couple of times because we were both going after different stuff. And that would be, I think, a downside to playing it as two-player because, I mean, there were so many cards. And I mean, you deal out more cards into the ghost rooms in each round. And I mean, we kind of pretty much had our pick of cards. I mean, there weren't any times when we looked at the cards that somebody else had and said, ooh, I really want that card because I got to have that card because I'm not going to be able to fill out this set if I don't. Because there is a lot of set collection in this. That's the primary thing that you're doing for scoring. But you are also taking hunt cards, which have little numbers on them, and you have opportunities throughout the game to discard those cards. You want to discard all of the higher numbers, and actually you don't want to really have any haunt cards at the end of the game because those numbers are not how many points you take off of your score. Those numbers, you add them up, and whoever around the table has the highest number for the haunt cards, not the most cards, but the highest total from the numbers on the backs of those, they discard their largest set. Gone. So, I mean, yeah, that's kind of brutal. So you want to get rid of those haunt cards as quickly as you get them. And you will take haunt cards if you do the dueling thing. But there are plenty of opportunities to pare them down. I took a bunch of haunt cards at the beginning of the game and then throughout the game was just gradually shedding them as much as I could, starting with the highest numbers and working my way down and trying very hard after a certain point in the game not to pick up any more, though you can't always control that. But it's a lot of fun. You have a little dial, the endless hallway that you turn in the center, and you have hitchhiking ghosts that travel around. After we played this, we ran the movie, The Haunted Mansion with Eddie Murphy, which we saw a long, long time ago. It's not a new movie. And we caught a glimpse of the hitchhiking ghost in one of the scenes there. And we're going like, oh, look. Because I didn't remember a whole lot about the movie, having seen it before, but it was a good pairing for this game if you're going to do a game and movie pairing. But smooth gameplay, easy fun. I would say, I mean, this is the Disney brand, and it's definitely kid friendly. Because, I mean, as far as whether the kiddies are going to be scared by anything on the cards, if they're not scared by Scooby-Doo, they're probably not going to be scared by this because the illustrations have those kind of cartoony ghost people images and stuff on them. They're not terribly, there's nothing terribly horrifying in any of those cards or anything. It's very, very family friendly. But I mean, adults can have a lot of fun with this too, with the whole card stealing and turning the dial, which, you know, moves the ghost. So it's got some interesting mechanics in it, and I think it could be fun, lightweight game. It's one of those kind of games you could play with kids, but the adults won't mind playing. But yeah, I think probably it's not at its best at 2. It can be played at 2, but and particularly with that whole thing, like you lose a whole chunk of your scoring cards at the end if you have the most. And with more players, there's a better chance of a tie, or the cards are more evenly distributed. You don't have people able to just like get massive amounts of points stacked up. That's all riding on that last turn or something like that. I don't know. I think it would be better with more people, but we did enjoy it, and it is just beautiful to look at. I love that board. Anyhow, I think that is about all. Yes, handy dandy notebook is just below the camera level this time. I think that's all I wanted to talk about. However, Let me see here. We do have a few things that could be considered Halloween games. One of them is definitely a Halloween game. It is themed especially for Halloween. We do have a few that we have not yet trotted out this October. We have got the Halloween version of Patchwork, which that's definitely Halloween version, Halloween themed, more so than some of the other games we've been playing. We also have Campy Creatures, which seems like that would be a good one for a Halloween themed game, but we have not yet played that this month. And we still haven't gotten to some of those gloom things that we've been doing. We've got more new gloom. We're getting gloomier. We also have a couple of games that are better at higher player counts or that need a higher player count. We've got B Movies, which we have not played at all. It's on our unplayed game shelf. It is 3-player minimum. And we've got Monstrosity, which is a party game. Drawing monsters. Well, not kind of. Yeah, drawing monsters. But you don't have to be good at drawing. It's more like scribbling. But, yeah, we've got a couple more that we could bring out, and we've got a couple more that we could bring out if we had more people, which is, I guess, possible, though it's sometimes hard to get together with people to play, partly because of the pandemic and partly because people are very, very busy doing other things than playing board games. But we've got our board games. And we are having a lot of fun this October. We are probably going to get in a couple more plays at the very least of the the Horrified duo, and maybe another Haunted Mansion run through. Now that we know what we're doing, I think that we're going to have to change some things strategically, like try to spread out our suits so that we're getting small amounts of a lot of things rather than trying to stack up too many of certain things because of that whole penalty if you get caught with too many haunt cards. So yeah, we may play that one again, but we're definitely going to get to Halloween Patchwork and probably Campy Creatures as well. And when we do, I'll be back with another video. But for now, it was great talking to you and good having you around my table. See y'all later. Bye.